Hello and welcome to my first ever tutorial. We'll be crocheting a mushroom. So for materials, what you'll need is a hook that matches your yarn. I'm using a 3.5mm hook because I'm working with double knit yarn. And then you'll also need some scissors or something to cut the yarn with when you're fastening off or changing colors. And then you'll also need a sewing needle, darning needle, whatever you want to call it, that your yarn fits into to weave it in. And you'll also need a stitch marker to keep track of where you are and keep track of your progress, as well as a little bit of stuffing. It's a small project, so only a little bit of stuffing is necessary. But without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so the yarn you'll be needing is your base color or the bottom color of the mushroom, like a cream or a white. I'm using this cream. And then the cap of your mushroom, I'm using pink. And yeah, you'll just get started with your base color because we're starting with the bottom of the mushroom and then working our way up. Okay, so for round one, you're going to start with a magic circle or magic ring, whatever you want to call it. And I'll show you how to do that. So you're going to get 2 fingers on your non-dominant hand. You're going to wrap it around twice like this, and then you're going to hold that side with your ring finger, and you're going to put your hook underneath the first loop and then over the second loop, and then you're going to pull the second loop through the first one, and then wrap your yarn around your hook and then pull it through the loop you have on your hook already. And then that's a magic ring. Yes, you can pull that little tail a bit to close it so it's easier to crochet into. But now you'll be putting 6 single crochets into the magic ring. So you're going to put the hook through, wrap your yarn around the hook and then pull it through. You should have 2 loops on your hook, then wrap the yarn around your hook again and then pull it through those 2 loops. That is a single crochet. You're going to do 5 more of those. So in, around, pull through, so you have 2 loops on your hook, and then around and pull through both of those 2 loops. Try to keep the loops decently loose while you're doing this so it's easier to pull through and you're not trying to pull for no reason, because if it's too tight it's not going to get through. So I'm just counting to see if I have 6 single crochets yet. I don't, I only have 5. So I'll do 1 more to get 6. So once you have 6 single crochets in your ring, you're going to pull the little tail so it closes up. And then we're going to start working on the next round, the second round. Okay, so now you're going to put the little tail on the front of your work so you don't have to weave it in now. You can weave it in at the end when you're going to weave in all the other ends. So what you're going to do now is put the stitch marker in the first stitch or the previous stitch that you just did. And then we're going to get started on the next round. So in this round you're going to be doing a single crochet in the first stitch and then an increase in the second stitch and repeating that round. So you're going to go through both loops like this and then do a single crochet like we did before. And then the next stitch we're going to do a single crochet increase, which is very similar to just 2 single crochets in 1 stitch. So you put 1 single crochet in and then you go back into where you just inserted and then do another single crochet. And then you're going to repeat that 2 more times. So a single crochet and then an increase in the next stitch. and then one more time, single crochet in this stitch, and then in the next stitch 2 single crochets, and then an increase in this stitch. I just moved my stitch marker to the side so I can insert in that stitch without having to take it out. So you can put your stitch marker back in if you want to count the rounds, or I like to put mine in the front of the stitch so I can count rounds like that. It's easier for me if I do it like that, if you get what I mean. Yeah, so 4 rounds, just ignore my hand. So it's just single crocheting the whole way around 4 times, and yeah, I'm gonna start that now. Okay, so now you can count your rounds to make sure you have 4. And then we're gonna move on to the next round, and we're gonna be crocheting in the front loop only, single crochet, and then an increase, and then another single crochet after that. So it's in the front loop. So I didn't explain it very well here, but this is the back loop, the green arrow is the front loop. You're gonna go under the front loop for this round. So you're gonna do a single crochet and then an increase in every front loop of this round. So like we did previously, but in the front loops only. I think it's easier to do increases in the front loops because the gaps tend to be bigger than when doing it under 2 stitches, so it's good practice. You're going to have 1 stitch left over, so in the front loop of that last stitch, just do a single crochet. No increase after it, just a single crochet. Okay, so for the next round, you're going to do 2 single crochets and then an increase in both loops again. So you're going to go back into both loops and do 2 single crochets and then an increase all the way around. So when you finish doing that, you're going to have 1 stitch left over, so you're going to do just 1 single crochet into that last stitch, nothing else. Okay, now you're going to change colour to the cap colour, so you're going to slip stitch in the next stitch, like that, and then chain 1. And then grab your scissors, leaving a bit of yarn, cut the yarn, and then pull your hook up so the yarn comes through the chain and ties a knot. Then get your next colour and make a slip knot like this. So just do a little loop, put it over, and then pull. Show it a bit slower. So loop, then you're going to put the yarn over, and then you're going to grab that little line in the center and pull it through. Put your hook in and tighten it, and then do a single crochet onto your project. So you're going to insert under 2 loops of the project. My mistake, under the back loop only of the project. So before I showed you the front and back loops, you're going to go into the back loop and do a single crochet. Then you're going to repeat that all the way around, so you're single crocheting in the back loop only for the whole round. When continuing to crochet, just move the tail out of the way so it gives you space to go into the first stitch of the last round, if that makes sense. You're just going to move the tail out of the way so you can keep crocheting. Now you're going to crochet 1 or 2 more rounds depending on if you want a short mushroom or like a decently sized mushroom. I'm going to be crocheting 2 rounds for the nice round mushroom top. If you want it taller, do 3 or 4 rounds. If you want it stubby, do 1 round, or even none if you want it extremely flat. But I'm going to be doing 2 rounds single crocheting. Okay, so now that that's finished, we're going to begin the next round. In that round we'll be doing 2 single crochets and then a decrease. So going in the next 2 stitches, the front loops only, you're going to enter into the first stitch and then right away into the second stitch, both under the front loops. And then you're going to put your yarn over your hook, pull through 2 loops, wrap your yarn around again, and then pull it through the last 2 loops, and then that's how you do an invisible decrease. So we're going to do that again, 2 single crochets and then a decrease. So under the front loop and then the front loop of the next stitch, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and then we're going to repeat that round. 2 single crochets, decrease like that under the 2 front loops, and then just continue that to the end. You'll have 1 extra stitch left over, which your stitch marker should be in. You're just going to do a single crochet into that stitch, then continue going to the next round. So now for the next round, or before we start the next round, we'll stuff it a bit. So remember to get your stuffing right to the bottom of the plushie so you have even layers throughout and you don't have one bit too empty, one bit too full. So you want to try to get it as even as possible. And you won't be stuffing it all right now, we'll finish stuffing in a bit. For now we'll just do majority. Okay, so now for this round we're going to be doing a single crochet and then a decrease. So a single crochet and then a decrease in the next stitch, or the next 2 stitches rather, and then repeat that round. Single crochet and then a decrease. You'll have 1 stitch left over, just single crochet in that last stitch. Okay, so now you can finish stuffing the plushie. Make sure you have a nice soft mushroom head, not too understuffed, not too overstuffed. Remember to fill in all the little gaps, because otherwise it will end up being understuffed. But don't go crazy with it, otherwise it'll be too firm. So now you can remove the stitch marker if you had it in, and you're going to do a slip stitch in the next stitch. So put your hook through, yarn over, and then pull through both loops on your hook, and then chain one, grab your scissors or your cutting tool and leave a couple inches so you can close it up properly. Now you can grab your needle, make sure your yarn can fit through it, and you put your yarn through. And then you're going to go in through the front loop of the first stitch, and then out the front loop of the second stitch. So make sure you're going into the front loops and not the back loops. So through the front, then out the front from the next stitch. So you'll be on the inside now, you're going to be going inside out, and then pull the yarn through. And then in the next stitch, outside in through the front loop, inside out through the next front loop. And then repeat that round, and then you can nicely pull your yarn and it'll close up like a drawstring. And then you can weave that in a bit more to make sure it doesn't come undone. Don't just leave it like that, you actually have to properly weave it in so it doesn't come undone. And then you can cut it. Then you can weave in the rest of the ends on your project like we were doing before. So just weave it in. Try to weave it into the same color. So I'll weave the cream color in with the cream crocheted part, and then I'll weave the pink ends into the pink crocheted part. Okay, so you have the little mushroom. You can leave it here if you want and you've completed your mushroom, but I like to add one more part that just completes it to me and makes it look a lot neater. So you're gonna do a slip knot with the cap color, the cap of your mushroom. You're gonna do it in that color, put it on your hook, and then we're gonna be crocheting in the back loop from when we changed color to the pink. So there should be those little loops left over. You're gonna go into one, or actually have the pink on the bottom, and you're gonna go in like that and then do a single crochet. So then wrap your yarn around, pull it through, wrap your yarn around again, and then pull it through both loops. And then you're gonna repeat that all the way around, working into those leftover loops in the project, and repeat it to the end, and you'll have a nice little flap going out, which I think is really neat. I definitely think it makes it look way more neat than what it was, and it just adds some character to it. When you reach the end, you're just going to slip stitch in the first stitch that you made there, chain one, and then fasten off your yarn. You don't have to leave such a long tail because you're just going to be weaving it in. For this, I'll make it easy. You just have to knot or double knot the 2 ends that are there, and then cut it off reasonably close to the knot. Not too close to the knot, otherwise it'll come undone, but a reasonable length from it. And then you have completed your mushroom. If you want, you can sew on some little speckles on the top with white or cream or whatever your base color was, or another color if you want. But this is how I like the mushroom. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope I see you in the next one. Bye!